The lemonade pitcher tipped over as the cruiser's sirens screamed closer. 12-year-old Malia stood frozen on the sidewalk, her small hands sticky with sugar and lemon, watching the red and blue lights reflect off her cardboard sign, $1 fresh lemonade for my library fund. And right across the street, arms folded, jaw tight, stood Mr. Dewey Stanton. Her neighbor. The one who always scowled when she played music. The one who always called her, that girl. Malia's voice was small but defiant. "I'm not doing anything wrong." The officer didn't respond. Before we dive deeper into this shocking story, drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And if you're into gripping stories like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Let me take you back memory lane. The first time Malia ever met Mr. Stanton, he wasn't yelling. He was just staring. It was last summer, a week after her mom moved them into the tiny duplex on Sycamore Street in a mostly white, neatly trimmed suburban block. He said nothing, just watched from his porch as they carried in boxes. "Ignore him," her mom, Denise, had said. "People like that, they've been staring their whole lives." Malia learned quickly that Dewey Stanton was the type of man who needed to feel in control of his surroundings. He kept his lawn like it was the front of a country club, polished his truck every Saturday, and filed HOA complaints like it was a hobby. And when Malia started her lemonade stand that June morning, bright yellow tablecloth, handmade signs, a tip jar labeled "Library Trip Dreams," he hadn't even lasted 20 minutes before coming over. "This isn't a flea market," he snapped, staring at her stand like it was a pile of garbage. "You can't just do whatever you want here." Malia stood up a little straighter. "It's just lemonade, sir. You need a permit." He waved his phone. "You can't sell food on a public sidewalk without one. That's health code violation." "It's not public," her mother called from the porch. "It's our side of the duplex. She's not on the street." But Dewey didn't budge. "Don't make this into something it isn't." That was the start. The days that followed were quiet, but only on the surface. Subtle things happened. Someone moved her sign from the corner to behind the bushes. Her tip jar was found knocked over twice. Her stand was egged once, just once, at night, and Stanton conveniently didn't hear a thing. Still, Malia kept showing up every morning at 9 a.m. with a fresh pitcher and a little smile. "For the dream," she'd whisper, imagining walking into that giant library in Atlanta, the one with the glass dome she'd seen online. Until Saturday. That morning, she sold out in under 2 hours. Cars lined up. Parents from the neighborhood smiled and asked about her goal. Even Mr. Carlos from 3 blocks down came over and bought 2 cups. It should have been a perfect day. Until the sirens came. The officer was young, early 30s maybe. Sunglasses, stiff walk, hand on his belt like he expected a fight. "We got a call about unauthorized vending on residential property," he said flatly. Denise stepped forward, her voice calm but firm. "This is my daughter. She's on our lawn. She's selling lemonade to raise money for a school project. She's not disturbing anyone. She's selling food without a permit," Dewey called out from his driveway. "That's a health code violation. I've already contacted the HOA." The officer looked between them, then at Malia. "Do you have a permit?" Malia's lips trembled. "I'm 12. "She's not running a food truck," Denise said. "This is a child selling lemonade in her front yard, like kids have done for decades. Do you really not see what this is?" The officer paused. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you and your daughter to take the stand down until this can be sorted." Malia looked at her mom. "But I was almost halfway to the goal." Denise's voice cracked for the first time. "It's okay, baby." She turned to the officer. "We'll pack up." From across the street, Dewey smiled. It was the kind of smile you don't forget. Not because it was big, but because it was small and satisfied. Malia gathered her cups. Denise folded the table. The crowd that had gathered slowly drifted off, some shaking their heads, others pretending not to look. And that might have been the end, if it weren't for the black SUV that pulled up 10 minutes later. The window rolled down. "Is that Malia Henderson?" a woman's voice called. Denise squinted. "Yes?" Out stepped a tall black woman in a navy pantsuit, heels sharp against the sidewalk. She had presence. like she belonged on a stage or behind a podium. And she did. Malia's jaw dropped. Is that? Denise whispered, that's the mayor. Mayor Celeste Rainey. She walked straight past the officer, past Dewey Stanton, and knelt beside the broken lemonade table. I heard someone shut down the best lemonade stand on Sycamore, she said, looking at Malia with a warm smile. That true? Malia nodded, stunned. Celeste stood and faced the crowd forming again. Funny. When I was a little girl, I ran a stand just like this. Same reasons. Same dream. But no one ever called the cops on me. She turned to the officer. Did you really tell her to shut it down? He swallowed. We got a complaint. And you acted on it without asking a single question? She asked, not raising her voice, but somehow commanding absolute silence. Dewey stepped forward. Look, I just called it in because there are rules. You can't just have people selling. Celeste turned to him. And you are? Dewey Stanton. I'm part of the HOA. She nodded slowly. Good to know. She looked around the yard, at the spilled pitcher, the cracked sign, the crushed tip jar, and then looked back at the officer. I'd like to make a purchase, she said, pulling out a $20 bill. Is she open? The officer hesitated. I don't think. Celeste cut him off. I'm not asking you. I'm asking her. Malia's eyes widened. I guess. I'm open. Celeste smiled. Then I'll take 2 cups, please. And make it extra cold. As Malia scrambled to find an unbroken cup, Mr. Stanton's phone buzzed in his hand. He stepped back toward his porch, reading the message. His face paled. Celeste glanced over. Everything okay, Mr. Stanton? He looked up, suddenly sweating. Yeah. Just a work message. But Celeste didn't blink. You work for the city, don't you? He nodded slowly. Her smile faded. Well then, Mr. Stanton, she said, her voice like velvet wrapping a knife. You and I will be seeing each other again very soon. Mr. Stanton didn't sleep that night. He sat in his kitchen, staring at his phone, the glow of the screen making the sweat on his brow glisten. A single message sat open, just 5 words from an unfamiliar number. You picked the wrong child. He told himself it was a bluff. Some activist nonsense. Probably from one of those bystanders who recorded the whole thing. There were at least 3 phones pointed at him after the mayor showed up. He wasn't worried. Not really. He'd been through worse, hadn't he? Still, he locked his doors and left the porch lights on. Across the street, Malia's stand remained folded in the corner of the garage. The scent of lemons still clung to her fingers, even after 3 hand washes. She sat in her room that night with her journal open, unable to write. I just wanted books, she whispered to herself. Downstairs, Denise was on the phone with someone from the mayor's office. The voices were hushed, but Malia caught snippets, pattern of behavior, prior complaints, and something that made her stomach twist, juvenile harassment. By morning, Sycamore Street didn't look different, but it felt different. Neighbors whispered. Cars slowed when passing the Henderson home. Someone had printed out a photo from the video and taped it to the community bulletin board outside the local grocery store. In the image, Dewey Stanton stood stiff and smug while the mayor knelt beside Malia. The caption in red sharper read, "This man called the cops on a 12-year-old." That afternoon, Malia sat on the porch sipping juice when a man in a brown jacket walked up the steps. He didn't look like a neighbor, more like a teacher or librarian. "Are you Malia?" he asked. She nodded, unsure. He smiled warmly. "My name's Mr. Riley. I'm a reporter for the Southside Beacon. Mind if I ask you a few questions?" Denise came out just in time. "This is a child. If you want to talk to me." Mr. Riley nodded. "Of course. I understand. I'm doing a piece on how local enforcement handles neighborhood disputes, and this incident has raised some questions. Especially about Mr. Stanton's history." Denise folded her arms. "What kind of history?" Riley looked around. "May we talk inside?" Inside the modest living room, Mr. Riley pulled out a small notebook. "I dug through city complaint records. Mr. Stanton has made 16 formal calls to law enforcement in the last 2 years. 4 of them involved children. Not all black children, But 3 were. One was a teenage boy walking a dog past his house. Another was a girl selling cookies door to door. Malia frowned. Why doesn't anyone stop him? Riley's tone darkened. Because he's careful. He phrases everything in legal language, noise, permits, codes. But what's concerning is how often his reports lead to overreactions. Some officers don't question him. They know his name. Denise clenched her jaw. He's been getting away with this for years. Mr. Riley nodded. But this time, there's video. There's the mayor. And, he paused, there's something else. A case from 4 years ago that might be connected. Meanwhile, Stanton sat in his office at the city planning department, hand twitching over his mouse. His inbox was full of unread messages, some anonymous threats, others from city officials demanding explanations. He had worked there for 15 years, quietly wielding influence over permits, zoning, and compliance enforcement. He wasn't a public figure, but he knew which files could bury someone's renovation plans, which email strings could reroute entire housing projects. That was power, and power doesn't apologize. Still, when his supervisor called him in and shut the door, he braced himself. "Dewey," she began carefully, "you're entitled to your personal views. But what you did across the street, it's blowing up. The mayor herself is involved. We've had calls from 3 council members asking for an internal review." Dewey's voice cracked slightly. "I didn't break any laws. I reported a code violation." His supervisor's stare was blank. "She's 12. He didn't respond. "And we've received a records request from the Southside Beacon for your complaint history. If there's anything you've been sitting on, anything that could be interpreted as targeted behavior." Her voice trailed off. He stiffened. "You know I keep things clean." She didn't look convinced. As he stepped out of the office, he caught sight of a young intern whispering to another colleague. They stopped talking when they saw him. One of them was holding a printout, his picture circled in red. That evening, Malia was back on the porch, this time with a closed sketchbook in her lap. She hadn't drawn since the incident. The fear had changed her. She didn't feel like the brave girl with the lemonade sign anymore. She felt watched. The sound of footsteps startled her. A woman in jeans and a blazer approached, holding a worn leather folder. "Hi. Are you Malia's mother?" Denise stepped out behind her. "Yes." The woman introduced herself. "I'm attorney Candace Roy. I represent victims in civil rights violations. Someone on the mayor's team sent me. May I show you something?" She opened the folder and handed Denise a photo. It showed a little girl, maybe 8, crying beside a tipped-over wagon of cookies. A police officer stood over her, and behind him, in the background, was a blurry figure on a porch. Denise stared. "That's Stanton." The lawyer nodded. "He called the cops on her too. Told them she was trespassing while selling cookies. I've tracked 5 families, all with eerily similar stories. Most were too afraid to speak up. But now, something's shifting." Malia whispered, "Why me?" Candace knelt beside her. "Because you didn't back down. Because when they silenced you, you didn't scream. You let them see you. That's strength." Denise hesitated. "What happens now?" Candace looked serious. "We're preparing a case. Civil harassment. Pattern of discrimination. Possible abuse of city power. If you're willing to go on record, it could change everything." Later that night, back across the street, Stanton stood in his dark kitchen again. He had taken down his front security camera. He didn't want anyone pulling footage. But something gnawed at him, a sense that something was off. He peeked out the window. On his lawn was a single sheet of paper, weighed down by a stone. He stepped outside, glancing around. The paper had no letterhead, no signature, just a single typed line. "You buried something 4 years ago. We're digging it up." The page trembled in Stanton's hand. He stood on his porch barefoot, the early morning dew soaking through his socks. For the first time in years, Dewey Stanton didn't feel in control. The words on that paper were too precise. Not angry, not dramatic, just surgical. Like someone who already knew where to cut. He didn't sleep again that night. Instead, he opened an old wooden box under his bed. Inside were folders marked with handwritten labels, noise complaints, zoning disputes, unauthorized vendors. And one, buried beneath the rest, labeled only E. Brooks. Meanwhile, at the Henderson home, the mood was quiet but heavy. Candace, the civil rights lawyer, had returned the next morning with a small team, 2 researchers and a social worker who greeted Malia like she was someone important. The living room became a temporary war room. Files were spread across the dining table. Malia peeked in but didn't interrupt. Instead, she sat on the stairs, hugging her knees, listening. One of the researchers, a man named Jonah, read something aloud. Complaint #407B, filed by D. Stanton, claimed a minor was causing a disturbance on public property outside the Whitmore Library. Candace leaned in. Is this the girl from the cookie wagon? Jonah shook his head. No. This is someone else. He handed her the file. Candace frowned, reading. Mariah Brooks, age 13. Accused of trespassing and creating a public nuisance. Picked up by officers. Spent the night in juvenile holding. Jonah added quietly, she never went back to school after that. A chill swept through the room. Denise came to the doorway. Wait. I know that name. Mariah Brooks, her grandma used to work at the laundromat on 8th. She was a sweet girl. Real quiet. Candace looked up. Do you know what happened to her? Denise hesitated. Word was, she tried to hurt herself a few months later. Never came back to town. The room fell silent. Back across the street, Stanton had pulled the blinds closed and turned off his phone. He scoured his filing cabinet for anything with Mariah's name on it, only to find one thin copy of the original complaint and a note, resolved without escalation. Officer Pearson. He remembered the girl. Brown skin. Big glasses. She had been handing out flyers for a reading club at the library entrance. He'd told her it wasn't allowed. She refused to move. Stanton remembered the scowl she gave him, like he didn't matter. And now, for years later, that scowl haunted him. He tried to calm himself. He'd been smart back then. No threats, no slurs, nothing that would stick. Just policy, codes, procedure. But still, someone had connected the dots. Someone was coming for him. That night, Malia couldn't sleep. Something about Mariah's story wouldn't leave her alone. A girl, just like her. One complaint, and her life unraveled. She tiptoed downstairs and opened the sketchbook she hadn't touched since the lemonade stand. She drew Mariah first, from her imagination. Glasses too big for her face. Soft eyes. A flyer in her hand. Then she added Stanton in the background, face shadowed, holding a clipboard like a weapon. She titled the drawing, Forgotten Girl. A tear splashed onto the page. The next morning, the mayor returned. No fanfare. No cameras. Just a soft knock on the Henderson door. She wore jeans and a gray hoodie and carried a manila envelope under her arm. Malia, she said gently, kneeling again, I saw your sketch. Malia blinked. How? The mayor smiled faintly. Your mom posted it in a support group. It's already been shared over 300 times. Denise appeared behind her daughter, protective but proud. The mayor held up the envelope. I wanted you to see what you started. Inside were over a dozen formal complaints, handwritten letters from families, teachers, even a retired librarian, all naming Stanton. Some dated back as far as 2011. Denise read aloud from one. He told me my son looked suspicious because he had a hoodie. He was walking home from track practice. Another read, he said my daughter's violin case looked like a weapon. She was 9. Malia's throat tightened. The mayor stood. We're launching a formal investigation. And I'd like your family to testify. Not just about what happened last week, but about what this street has felt like for years. If you're willing. Denise looked to Malia. I am, the girl said quietly. For Mariah. But not everyone was cheering. Later that afternoon, as Denise stepped outside to check the mailbox, a car slowed to a crawl in front of the house. The driver, a middle-aged man in a ball cap, rolled down his window. Hey, he called. You're the one stirring all this up, huh? Denise froze. You think you're helping things? He sneered. You're making our street a circus. Stanton's been here 20 years. You people just moved in. He drove off without another word, tires squealing at the corner. Malia stood on the porch, watching. Denise's hand trembled as she held the mail. At the city office, Stanton was packing a box of personal items. His supervisor had recommended he take leave during the investigation. His badge was deactivated, his nameplate removed from the door. As he closed the box, a man in a tan trench coat appeared. Mr. Stanton? He turned. Who are you? Detective Omar Phillips. Civil Review Board. I'd like to speak with you about a girl named Mariah Brooks. Stanton swallowed. That was years ago. The detective opened a file. Do you remember Officer Pearson? He's since retired, but his name comes up a lot when your name does. And the body cam footage from that night, well, let's just say it wasn't properly logged. Stanton felt sweat break across his back. I didn't do anything wrong, he said, almost too quickly. Detective Phillips raised an eyebrow. That's what they all say. That night, Malia sat beside her mother, watching the news. A segment aired showing 3 families stepping forward with lawsuits against the city, citing negligence, misconduct, and targeted harassment, all tied to the same man. Then came a new detail. Sources say an internal city audit is now examining a potential connection between Mr. Stanton's complaints and a real estate development firm that purchased foreclosed properties after those complaints led to evictions or citations. Malia turned to Denise, eyes wide. He was getting people out, so others could move in? Denise didn't answer. She didn't have to. A new chill filled the room. Just then, there was a knock at the door. Denise opened it to find Candace holding an unsealed folder. I found something, the lawyer said, breathless. We pulled old files from city archives. This one was supposed to be shredded. Inside was a scanned document, faded but legible. It was a private email from Dewey Stanton to a developer. It read, once that family's gone, the property should clear compliance. Just keep the bonus under wraps. Beneath it, the date, June 9, 2021. Recipient, G. Harrington Properties. And in the CC line, Officer R. Pearson. Candace held the folder like it was made of glass. Denise scanned the email again. Her eyes caught the date, June 9, 2021. That was 2 summers ago. Around the time the Wilsons, a black couple down the street, were suddenly forced out. Their grass had overgrown after Mr. Wilson had back surgery, and just like that, there was a citation, then 2 more, and then the home was boarded up. Now, it all made sense. He was working with the developers? Denise whispered, her voice trembling. Candace nodded slowly. It's more than that. This wasn't about rules. This was a scheme, targeting families, creating paper trails, then cashing in when they were forced out. Malia's face turned pale. And the officer, he helped him? That's what it looks like. Denise sat down hard on the couch, holding her chest like the wind had been knocked out of her. They weren't just harassing us, she murmured. They were cleaning the block. Across town, in a quiet restaurant where city contractors liked to meet far from prying eyes, a man in a sleek navy suit sat hunched over a table. Your name's in it? He asked Stanton, who hadn't touched his coffee. Yes, Stanton replied, lips tight. And so is yours. Gerald Harrington of Harrington Properties looked out the window and gave a soft whistle. Relax, he said. Nobody's gonna connect all the dots. The cop's gone. The girl disappeared. It's your word against some activist lawyer and a kid. Stanton shook his head. They have the emails. Gerald's expression stiffened. I told you to wipe your end. I thought I did, Stanton said bitterly. Gerald leaned in, voice low and dangerous. Then you'd better find out who didn't. The next day, Denise and Candace were summoned to City Hall. The mayor met them in a quiet back office, far from the press. Her jaw was tight, her eyes tired. We received a cease and desist letter, she began. Denise's heart skipped. From who? Harrington Properties. Claiming defamation. They're threatening to sue you. And the city. Candace scoffed. Classic intimidation. They know what's in that folder. The mayor looked between them. We'll stand behind you. But you need to understand, this could get ugly. You're stepping into money, connections, and history. Denise nodded, jaw set. Then it's about time someone did. Meanwhile, Malia sat by the window, clutching her sketchbook. She hadn't drawn in 2 days, not since Candace showed them the email. Every time she picked up her pencil, her hands shook. Her thoughts were clouded with guilt. What if she hadn't set up the lemonade stand? Would they still be safe? Her mother was getting hate mail. Candace was receiving veiled threats. And her drawing, the one of Mariah, had gone viral, spawning angry debates on every platform imaginable. People were calling her a hero, a liar, a puppet. Some even accused her family of playing the race card. It was too much for her 12-year-old heart. She turned the page and started sketching anyway. This time, she drew herself, small, sitting on the steps in front of their home. Behind her loomed shadows. But in her hand was a light. Tiny, flickering, but stubborn. She titled it, Still Here. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the trees, Malia sat outside with her mother. The air was cool, filled with the scent of fresh-cut grass. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then Denise asked softly, "Do you want us to stop?" Malia blinked. "What do you mean?" "All of it. The press. The testimony. Candace's plan. We could stop now. Let it go. Stay quiet and safe." Malia didn't answer right away. She picked at the peeling paint on the porch railing. Finally, she whispered, "Would Mariah have wanted that?" Denise closed her eyes. "No," she said. She wouldn't. The town hall meeting came 3 nights later. Word had gotten around about the complaints, the investigation, the emails. The community center was packed. Dozens of residents, most of them black or brown, stood shoulder to shoulder. Some held signs. Others held silence. The mayor took the podium first, laying out what was found: the pattern of complaints, the coordinated removals, the email trail. She named Stanton. She named the firm. But the room didn't really come alive until Candace stepped forward and brought Malia with her. Gasps echoed. Everyone knew the girl from the news, the one with the lemonade. "She's not here to entertain you," Candace said, voice hard. "She's here to speak truth." Then she stepped back. Malia took the mic. Her hands trembled. Her voice cracked. But she didn't stop. "I just wanted to sell lemonade. That's all. I didn't know anything about lawsuits or zoning or bad people. I just wanted to make people smile." She paused. Swallowed. "But someone saw me and he didn't see a girl. He saw a problem. A threat." Silence. "I don't know why. I still don't. But now I know he's done it before. And I know people got hurt because of it. And maybe if we say something now, fewer kids will get hurt later." When she finished, there was no applause. Just heavy, reverent quiet. Until one woman in the back stood and said, "I remember Mariah." Then another man said, "Stanton came after my nephew too." And then it all broke open. By the next day, social media was on fire. #Justice for Mariah trended nationally. A protest was scheduled. Donations poured in for a new legal fund. The mayor's office announced a full audit of Stanton's past 10 years of work. But with attention came danger. That afternoon, while Denise was out getting groceries, she came back to find their front porch vandalized, graffiti in red spray paint. "Lies. Get out." Malia saw it first. She screamed. Denise dropped the bags, running up the steps, wrapping her arms around her daughter. "We're okay," she whispered, even though her voice shook. But they both knew it was far from over. That night, Candace called in a favor. She arranged for a family friend, a retired firefighter named Lewis, to stay overnight at the Henderson house. Just in case. He was warm, kind, and calm. He taught Malia how to make French toast with cinnamon and told her stories about the marches he joined back in '95. For a while, everything felt safe again. Until the knock came. It was just past midnight. Lewis stepped out onto the porch, flashlight in hand. Nothing. No one. He turned to go back inside. And that's when he noticed it. A white envelope, tucked into the mailbox. No name. No stamp. Just 3 typed words on the front. "You're not finished." The morning after the envelope arrived, Denise didn't speak much. She moved through the house like she was listening for something off. Every creak in the floorboards. Every leaf that brushed against the window. Her nerves were raw, her shoulders stiff. Malia sat at the table, eating cereal she barely tasted. Her eyes were red from crying. Louis had stayed on the porch all night, a bat beside him and a thermos of coffee. When Candace arrived, he handed her the envelope. She opened it with gloves in case of fingerprints. Inside were no threats, no names, just one photo, grainy, black and white. It was of the Wilson house, but not before it was boarded up. This photo showed a meeting. 3 men, shaking hands. One of them was Stanton. Another was Gerald Harrington. And the third? Candace's hand trembled. "That's Councilman Harlan," she whispered. "He's the one who approved every one of those redevelopment grants." By noon, Candace had filed an emergency motion with the district court. She contacted a trusted journalist she'd worked with during a housing discrimination case in Atlanta. And she contacted the mayor directly. "I think this goes deeper than zoning," she said. "I think we're looking at racketeering." The mayor sighed into the phone. "Do you understand what you're saying?" "Yes," Candace said. "And I think they do too. Which is why they're trying to scare us silent." There was a pause. Then, "I'll meet you at city chambers at 5. We're going public." That afternoon, the press gathered. The mayor stood at the podium beside Denise, Candace, and, this time, Louis. Cameras clicked. Microphones fed live to national news streams. On the screens behind them, Candace laid out the timeline, the false complaints, the strategic removals, the public auctions where developer-friendly names always won. Then came the emails, the photo, the money trail. Councilman Harlan was mentioned by name. So was Harrington. So was Stanton. But the most powerful moment came when Malia stepped up to the mic, holding her sketchbook. "This is my neighborhood," she said, flipping through each page. "This is me and Mariah. This is the lemonade stand. This is when I was scared. But this is when I stopped being scared." She turned to a final drawing, a crowd of people standing together with bold text above it. "We are not gone." That night, the Henderson home was quiet, but the air carried a new energy, like the first breath after a storm. Malia slept soundly for the first time in days. Denise sat by the window with a cup of tea. Candace stood beside her. "You know what scares me the most?" Denise asked. "It's how close they came to getting away with it." Candace nodded. "But they didn't." Denise exhaled slowly. "I still miss Mariah." "So do I," Candace said. "But I think she'd be proud." Just then, Denise's phone buzzed. "Breaking news. Councilman Harlan resigns amid zoning scandal. State attorney announces investigation." They stared at it. And then tears. Silent. Cleansing. Long overdue. In the days that followed, Stanton was suspended from duty pending an internal investigation. Gerald Harrington was subpoenaed for financial records. The Wilsons and 3 other displaced families were contacted about a class action suit. Malia's story was covered on national television. The mayor announced a new housing equity committee and named Denise as one of its co-chairs. And on a warm Saturday morning, just a few weeks later, Malia set up a new lemonade stand. Same table, same sign. But this time, the line stretched around the block. One of the customers, an older white man, dropped a $50 bill into the tip jar. "For your bravery," he said. Malia looked up at her mom, who smiled through misty eyes. Then she looked back at the man and said, "Actually, it wasn't bravery. It was the truth." Lessons learned. Racism doesn't always wear a hood. Sometimes it wears a badge, a suit, or a city seal. The quiet injustices, zoning laws, paperwork, complaints, can be just as dangerous as open hate. One voice, especially from a child, can shake a system. Malia's courage, speaking the truth, drawing what she saw, refusing to be silenced, was the match that lit the fire of change. Allies matter, but the right ones matter more. From Candace the lawyer to Louis the protector, It took people willing to stand up, not just stand by. Silence protects no one. Truth, no matter how uncomfortable, is the only path to justice. Had Denise stayed quiet, had Candace walked away, had the mayor folded, the cycle would have continued. Community is power. In the end, it wasn't just Malia or Denise. It was a neighborhood, a movement, and a refusal to back down. Thank you for watching this powerful, true story-inspired episode of Within the Crime. True Crime Files Daily. If this story moved you, taught you something new, or reminded you that justice sometimes starts with a child's whisper, please like the video. Drop a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts and personal stories. Share it with someone who needs to hear this. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode from Within the Crime. Your support helps keep real stories like this alive and exposes the truths too often hidden. Until next time, stay aware, stay courageous, and remember, sometimes the smallest voice is the loudest echo.